We're doing a show?
We are. We could do that today.
Is there going to be a plot?
Hopefully. All right, well, welcome back. I feel like it's been like 3 months since we've had a show.
It's been a minute.
We skipped 2 weeks.
Where am
and we
I?
had an episode in between. So, a lot has happened, actually. Quite honestly, everything's kind of running together. So, I don't know where we left off on our lives, but...
I haven't got a life.
That's not true. So I don't know if we talked about our 24-hour experiment at the Granger house. Did not go as planned. And we'll have to do a reboot of it.
Take 2.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was unfortunate because I was really looking forward to the results of that. But unfortunately, it sounds like that not everybody who was present was on board with the project. So, is what it is. Also, Adam and I, hopefully you saw our video, went and visited, as John called it, Demon Lot. I knew he would be very excited when I sent him the picture of where we were. Side note, Gary, Indiana looks exactly like I had imagined. It is all just one large ghetto, unfortunately. There are like a nice house surrounded by about 10 blocks of houses that look like they are in the middle of being gutted. A lot of them appear to have been set on fire at one point.
Meth lab. Going horribly wrong.
Probably.
Sure, there's a few of those. Yeah.
Yeah. The houses that people did live in looked like they were preparing for a hurricane because they had metal shutters down on their windows. Not even bars. Literally metal shutters down on their windows.
It's because demons can get through bars.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I was shocked to see that it wasn't just the area of Carolina Street. It is the entire town. And it does not appear that anybody picks up trash in Gary. I mean, we drove through pretty much all of the town because there were a couple different things we wanted to see there. And there's trash just everywhere. It's a tragic town.
Yeah. I meant to do a little research on what happened to Gary.
This is Steel.
Oh, Steel.
Rust Belt.
Yeah.
So
that Chicago steel plant that we drove by that looked like it was closed. That was probably
we drove by so many schools that were, I mean, and here's the thing, like, everything is abandoned and in disrepair, but still standing.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird to drive through it. And it's sad. And I hope someday somebody helps them out like people are trying to help Detroit out. Because it's a sad state of affairs. And we didn't see any nice hotels, so I don't feel bad for what I said. In fact, I don't even remember seeing any hotels in Gary.
Just going to one of the abandoned houses, you don't need a hotel.
That's true.
That is true.
There is one building that we went and checked out. I'm not going to give any other details about it, but I've got a possible lead on somebody who might let us in to investigate. And some of the windows on the main floor were broke out, so we were taking pictures in there, but I was just waiting for somebody to come, like, charging out of there. Now, it was several degrees colder in the building than it was outside, so I'm sure if anybody was in there, they're freezing our asses off. But we went to the lot, and I can tell you that house was even smaller in reality than you probably pictured it in your head. That lot is very, very small.
Yes, I would say that house was probably no more than 700 square feet.
Are you saying you couldn't fit 300 demons physically inside that house? Because it was too small?
Well, I guess if you could stack them...
Imps.
8 high. even at that.
Slice them thinly.
Yes, you would... Yeah, you definitely have to... They would all have to be midget demons.
Sardine.
I don't know if
Sardine
midget's an
demons.
appropriate word anymore.
It's not?
Isn't it?
I can't keep up. If I offended anybody, I'm sorry. I can't keep up.
Vertically challenged.
There you go.
I don't. That's probably not acceptable.
Was not?
No.
Adam was more scared about our surroundings. I wasn't bothered by anything there. He kept telling me, there's people, come on. Well, get out of the grass, come on.
Because in the grand scheme of things, when you're in the grass, you're still trespassing on someone's property. I don't know who owns it. But then the one people left their house, which that was fine. I mean, they looked at us a little funny. But then I thought they were coming back, and I was like,
because they were probably like, what are these crazy white folks doing?
Well, I'm sure that's
standing in the middle of this empty lot right now.
Can you say white folks?
I am one, so yes, I can.
But you're not a midget, so you can't say that.
I mean, I'm 5'2".
She's over 5 foot, so she's not considered a midget.
I'm just trying to work it all out, what people are allowed to say. I always run into problems with that kind of stuff.
I understand. So, I didn't feel anything when we were there. I would suspect anything that was that demonically possessed would have some type of residual. And especially since Father Mike was so disappointed in Zach for unleashing the demons on the world, that there would be some type of residual feeling there, and there was nothing. Now,
I knocked that tiny little house, all 300 demons are going, freedom!
Exactly.
One thing I kept, when we were on our way there, I even said to Adam, like, it's hard for me to remember that this house was torn down 5 years ago. Because it doesn't feel like it's been that long. Or that the events themselves happened 7 years ago. And in fact, we didn't know if we would get there and there would be another property or another house on the property now. There's not.
You can't fit another house on the property.
No. There, you can still see where some of the foundation was. You can see where the walk up to the house was.
I'm guessing, though, those neighbors.
They're probably used to it.
I bet you're not the only people to go there.
No.
I mean, they're probably used to. If they don't know the story, they'll be like, why do people keep coming looking at this piece of grass?
Well, and it's weird because, so the lot that was 3860 Carolina Street, I'm pretty sure that's the other address, is empty. And then there's one house before the corner, and then the corner lot is fenced off. And so at first I thought maybe it was that corner lot, but based on the address that was in the article and everywhere else, it had to have been the lot that we were on. I don't know why the corner lot is all fenced off.
That's where they put the demons.
That could be.
Yeah. They took
a demon playpen.
They moved them over.
It's a cardboard city, and they're all sleeping rough. You should have pulled up and see if they came out and cleaned your windscreen and stuff.
The demonic Skid Row, maybe.
All laying in the alley with needles in their arms. We've hit bottom. I'm outdoors, you know. Gonna maybe come stay with you for a couple of days.
Oh, goodness.
The things that I put up with. So while we were busy doing that, though, well, and I'm going to take a step back further, and I'm not trying to rehash anything, but John has had a little bit of a change in his life. He's still married. That's not the change.
Sorry, ladies. He's not single.
I wish to be identified as a woman.
Oh, dear. Don't put that out there.
That is not where we are going with that.
I don't know. I have trouble keeping up with stuff.
So, we've talked about putting, for people who are new to all of this, what it's like to put together a team. But sometimes those teams don't stay together. Now, my team has just kind of moved everywhere. So we're kind of like not really a group anymore, not really a team anymore. We're basically just the people who want to get together and go investigate. And so John has had kind of a change of scenery in his group now. And so where are we finding you now?
You can find me on the Facebook and YouTube. The website with links to both is phantomscience.net. I'm going to be concentrating more on things like equipment, theories, that kind of thing. I am going to try and stay way away from narratives. I mean, I will touch on them because that goes hand in hand with theories. But I'm not going to be running around, saying, I'm talking to this spirit or that spirit based on the narrative of the property or anything like that. What I would like to do when I go is do ranges of experiments, So, I mean, we just did for our last week And, we ran experiments, basically.
Yeah,
and
we want to hear
was-
about your...
And it was kind of fun. I mean, we had maybe, I've got a thing with iron filings in it. We just set it down in one of the classrooms, never went near the classroom again. We took a picture before when we placed it, and we took a picture after. Now, my eyes are bad. I'm pretty sure that the filings have moved. I put it out there for people to say, yes, it did, or no, it didn't. So, but I'm pretty sure they did. So the only way they can move is a magnetic field, So, does that prove a ghost? No. And here's the thing with my new group. Really, I don't want to go, oh, look, that's proof of a ghost, that's proof of a ghost, because none of it is. But what I would like to do is pull together, in these places that are supposedly haunted, how many weird inconsistencies you can get, and then try and, by collecting that kind of data, see, okay, we have a lot of this kind of thing going on, or a lot of that kind of thing going on, and then just try and narrow it down over not just one quick shotgun in and say, yeah, there's the ghost, we had it, we had an EVP or whatever. I want to go in and keep doing, the same kind of experiments at different places or whatever, and that's my gig, I guess, So that's what, more and equipment, once again, looking at equipment, trying to figure out what's useful, what's not useful, and if we can improve what we're doing or the techniques we're doing to get clearer data instead of, the K2 sitting in the corner, and every now and then it goes off because it's not shielded and we got hit by a radio wave from somewhere. That's, I guess, and I'm not, I always sound like I'm having to go at other, I'm not, but for me personally, that's not enough. So I want to actually try and define what's going on a little, with a few more boundaries on it.
But I do think, just to comment before we hear about Farrar, I do think that the K2 can be useful when used in conjunction with other equipment.
It can. I mean, I'm not writing it off, but, and on its own, I can't put much stock into it personally, just because I've seen it go off when people hit a walkie-talkie, or I've seen one go off when I turn my camera on. Or, I mean, and there's, for example, actually I put a video up today because it was about the tri-field meter, which is like an EMF meter, one that we use, and the guy was using it to give examples. And one that kind of piqued my interest is, for example, the new electricity meters they put out. Like, about once an hour or so, they'll shoot off a burst of RF and shoot out a signal. Because that's how these, they collect the data. So, I was watching him, and he was by it, and it went off. And it spiked and went back down again, and it looked so much like a K2 meter going off on a ghost thing. I was like, oh, come on. And if it doesn't happen a lot, it's not all the time, it's just a burst or something. You start wondering, how many things give off a burst?
Yeah, and we talked about, during Demon House, the reality of what Dr. Tapp was picking up with his tri-feld meter was not what they were presenting it as, because we've got natural motors in our houses that are running, that you've got that stuff around you all the time. But so while we were standing on Demon Lot, you were in Farrar, not exactly the same time, but tell us about how that went.
It was kind of good. Me and a friend called Ron went up there. So let's see, I actually took 3 trail cams with me that I just bought because it was Cyber Monday, so you get really cheap.
You get them really cheap. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's how we've gotten ours, actually, too.
Yeah.
So.
So we placed one in the boiler room down at Farrar, and then one on each of the hallways, first and second floor hallway. We had the magnetic trap out with the iron filings in a classroom that we never went. We also never went back to the boiler room. We wanted to concentrate this time on the auditorium, just because that's okay. Instead of wandering around,
we had great experiences there.
So we did that, and we used the new spirit box that I built that cuts out the white noise. So all you hear is words, and then it clicks the next. The way it works, once again, I got a video up. You push a set button on it when you first set it up, and it will scan all through the FM band, and it will program, every time it gets a strong signal, it programs that signal. Once it's finished that, then it just jumps from strong signal to strong signal, strong signal. So you don't get all the empty in the middle. but you get a nice string of words. And the nice thing is they're kind of more together. So if something is trying to put a sentence through and they're doing it the way a lot of people believe they're doing it, which is using existing radio waves, you know, it should be easier for them to string stuff together. And, you know, I took a long, 7-minute just talk away, and we tried talking to them and it's hard to hear it real time. But then when I went back, I'm doing a new technique now of just watching. I'm not really, I'm listening, and then every time there's something I think I recognize, I'll put the text in. And I try not to think about what's come before or what's coming up or anything like that. And then when it's all put together, then I'll go back and look. And then, because some of them are going to be radio. So then I'm trying, one of the ones that was near the goal line. I mean, okay, that's radio.
Yeah.
But then there's a couple of times where there's 2 instances in there, I swear they're not coming from the radio. And there's another one that's coming from the radio that I said, are you guys learning lessons at the moment? And it came through clear. It said, I'm playing Dizzy Computer. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of a weird one. And I just Googled Dizzy Computer just because, and Dizzy was a game in 1986 for a computer.
Yeah.
So like, that's the right time frame for our, students. So I remember back then I had a computer and played those kind of games. So, we had that. But there's a number of them. I'm not going to list it all here. The videos out there, and there's a couple of them in there though that it doesn't sound like it's the radio. And there's one saying, things like, this life is over,
Wow.
and stuff like that. But it's like a whispery, over the top of the radio, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which that radio shouldn't do, So it's really kind of cool. So I'm really enjoying that spirit box. So yeah, and we had that, and then we did a bunch of other things. I bought a Muse, which is supposed to aid you in meditation. It's a headband. You put it on.
Yes.
And it reads all the EEGs. You do your theta, gamma, alpha, beta, all those waves. And that will be so cool to be able to measure so I took that for a test run at Farrar, and then, made sure, and the program I've got actually just measures the brainwaves, so you'll get a nice graph of what the brainwaves were. So I want to, I just took that out for a field test to make sure I could, it would do what I wanted it to do, which it does. So when we go to Edinburgh, I'm going to be wearing that quite a lot. So, and I'm going to mark when I get, when you get creeped out, that creepy feeling or anything like that. Or, if you hear something that other people don't, I want to mark those and see what's going on inside the brain when that happens. So, because if they are getting to you personally, it should be affecting a brainwave in some way. So, that's enough. So, like I said, it's getting a little bit more sciencey and boring for some people that like to go there and, get the feelings and the stories and all that. But for me, I want to, if they're interacting, how are you interacting? I like it.
So for those who don't know, for our school, and I think you can find it online, it's Haunted for Our School, was a school that probably in maybe the first decade of 1900s, a farmer donated a field of land to the community to build a school. I want to say 1911, but I know that's also the year that Edinburgh was built, so that might be what I'm thinking.
1920, if I remember.
Yeah, right. So I didn't think that was probably right. But yeah, anyway, so farmer donated his land, they built the school, and it was considered a great school up until right around 2000, and the school district built a new building for them. So pretty old school, 80 years old, I guess. Doesn't really look like anything too terrifying, but I tell you what, people have had a lot of experiences in there. Yeah.
I've had a lot that I just can't explain. One thing I will bring up with the auditorium, which kind of freaked me out a little bit, but so we ran that spirit box thing. We had the Tascam in there, the spirit box in there. We had Num Num, the feeder, up there. And I've got another one now that makes different tones for different metals, so it will do different wavelengths.
Yeah.
So we had all those up there, and then we did that, and we went down to the, quote, safe room. So we sat there, and I had a couple of cigarettes, came back, started to go upstairs, do another. Went up there. The spirit box would not work. It was getting a B0 error when I tried to turn it on. I'm like, what the? Why? No, we haven't moved it. We haven't done anything to it. All I did was turn it off. So I'm like, all right, because I made it, maybe I did something bad, but there's no reason why I should just stop right now. But okay, that's fine. Went to get the Tascam, had file error written on it. It was recording.
Weird.
So that broke. Num Num broke. Wouldn't turn on. Nearly everything in that room just stopped working.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But what's even crazier is, and I had to take a video and send it to Ron because he didn't believe me. When I unpacked the stuff, I took the spirit box out of the car. In the workshop, it worked fine. I was like, come on. So
very strange.
I know. So yeah, freaky stuff happens there, but it's Farrar and Edinburgh, the two places I have equipment malfunctions. Yeah. I'd never have it anywhere else.
Well, and I'll tell you, like at Farrar in the auditorium, actually, which was the very first place we ever investigated. That night, as messy as that night was, in that auditorium room, we started a vigil, and at the end of it, was it you or somebody else, had a chess piece and a cigarette sitting next to them that was not there when we started the vigil.
Yeah, I don't smoke.
And nobody moved. I mean, we all were sitting on the floor or stage or wherever. Nobody moved during the time we were in there. And when we were ready to go for a break, Adam had a cigarette and a chess piece next to him, which we all thought was really strange because we had no idea where it came from or how it got there. But as we were walking down the stairs right after that, somebody shot a marble at us, and we heard it bounce down the stairs because it's that hard kind of cement floor, and it hit a landing, bounced twice, and then stopped. And a marble doesn't just do that. Yeah. It didn't roll, it didn't bounce, crazy. It didn't hit, it just stopped.
And it just like stopped right in the middle of the landing.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've had like something thrown I got poked in the back of the arm down in the boiler room. And then there's one time we were approaching the boiler room and you could hear something metal being thrown in there. So
that was the time you decided not to go in.
Yeah, we were like, nah, I don't think they want us in there. I might see something I can't unsee. That's why we put that camera down there. And we had, because we weren't going down there anymore, I was pretty sure all we were going to get pictures of. Because if it gets set off, I had to take 3 pictures. And I figured, well, all we're going to see is us setting it up, us picking it up, and that's it. But it went off twice, so I had 2 sets of 3 stills. One of them, you could see, there's a mouse coming down one of the, they've got like these shelves.
Yes.
You see this mouse heading down south on the shelf, which set it off. That's fine. I'm like, well, that's those 3. But the other 3, you cannot see what set it off. And there is dust everywhere, just flying around. And I'm like, why is this dust flying around? And what set the camera off?
Yeah.
I went back to the mouse 3 where no one's in there. There's no dust anywhere. So then I'm thinking boiler, and then I'm like, well, wait a minute. The boiler doesn't work.
No, because it's freezing in that building. Yeah, it's freezing.
And then I looked, so the mouse one was after the dust one. And these cameras show the temperature, which is kind of cool. And the temperature of the dust is like 50 degrees, the one with the mouse is 40 something. So if there was a boiler or something, it would have been going off when the mouse was going. Because of the,
Yeah.
So, that one, I mean.
So if you can hear Bella, obviously there's a dog outside.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. But that's why I love those trap cams, because as we've talked about before when we used them at Edinburgh, and the night that we had craziness going on above us, every set of pictures that camera took, one of us is in, except those last set when we heard furniture moving above us.
Mm-hmm.
Camera went off. Same time period we heard the furniture moving. None of us were up there to set it off. Yep. And nobody's in the pictures. That's why, that's one of those pieces of equipment that I think people overlook. Very simple piece of equipment, but it can be really cool when you find something like that.
Plus they got timestamps on them.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Timestamps, like you said, they've got the temperature on them. They'll take pictures in light or dark.
Yeah. The ones I picked up were $40 a piece, so I bought 3 of them.
Yeah.
I get 3 for the price of 1.
Yeah. We probably spent more on cameras than we probably should have. So ours, oh my God, they do take a shit ton of batteries.
Yes,
I think
do.
one of mine takes like 12 batteries. It's ridiculousness.
Yeah, mine take 4 AA's.
Oh yeah.
Mine have you beat.
Yeah, that one we've got takes. It's either 10 or 12 batteries, but I mean that's the purpose of them. They're meant to be left out in the woods.
Well, and that's also the
the
benefit of those cameras too is that they're meant to be left alone and just run. Where our GoPros or whatever will only last for a couple hours. Yeah. These will last, and you can do video, and at least on ours, you can do video or camera shots. I've always just done the camera.
I just did camera. I was like, the video. Why? Because then you don't know when. Here's the thing. So the way I was reasoning it is, if there's something there that sets it off, but you can't see it, how do you know if it's a video of 3 minutes? How do you know if it's gone or not? Whereas if you leave it on a 3-shot sequence of 5 seconds and you get 9 shots, then you know something's been dinking with it, for a 3-shot period.
Exactly. So it's pretty. I recommend those to everybody. And they're a pretty decent price range. You can go from, like you said, $40, and now's a great time of year to get them, all the way up to
oh my God,
hundreds.
Yeah.
Depending on what you want them to do. I think the most we spent was probably 80, but
that was the other
90 maybe.
Like when Ron was there, we got to avoid those. I'm like, no, just walk past them because it's a way of taking pictures without thinking about it, and it's stuff to look at.
Well, and it also tests them, to make sure that it's working too. So
yeah. And they're infrared, 60 feet range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you can get out to Farrar, like I said, maybe I didn't. It's near Des Moines, Iowa. It's out in the country. Used to be a small community. I don't know that Farrar as a town actually exists any longer, but there is a school district that still has Farrar in its name. So just be careful when you're looking it up. It's Haunted Farrar School, but it's decently priced to get out there. It's not one of those places that's gouging people too much. So
no, it's like 200, I think, 200, between 200 and 250, somewhere around there.
Very good price, I think.
Oh yeah.
And we've been going out there at least for 7 years, probably. And we've been there maybe 4 times. But it's a good place, so I recommend it. Obviously, John does too, based off.
Yeah, that's got to be. I think that's my 4th time, 3rd or 4th time.
Yeah, I've heard people kind of say it's hit or miss sometimes. One thing I think I've posted.
I think everywhere's hit or miss, though.
Well,
amen. You can't go anywhere.
I agree.
And guarantee it.
I think I've posted the video that I took at Farrar before, and God bless y'all for listening, but nobody had any opinions of. It looks like a hand approaches the light. I don't have a better explanation. So maybe one of my best caught pieces of evidence. And yes, Shay and John, I use the word evidence because I can.
I'm not the police. Everything I say is my opinion.
I understand.
But I may make fun of you later.
That's fine. I'm used to it. Well, before we go any further, we probably should call Mr. Darren because he's probably wondering why the hell I haven't called yet.
Yeah. He's sitting by his computer anxiously waiting.
Yes. Let's give him a quick call.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
All right, sir. What do you have for us tonight?
Okay. This is kind of recent that I have kind of indulged in a little bit. The doppelgangers and mimic spirits. What are your views on those?
His eyes are bulging out of his head right now, so I'll be curious to get the answer on this.
There's mine?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Honestly, all I know is the folklore and legends of doppelgangers. As far as them being an actual thing, I could see it being possible, but for me, that's way too big of a leap of faith. There's so many other things that have to be true before I came to that. And I guess I'm not there yet.
I'm going to challenge you a little bit, though.
Go ahead.
Because it's my understanding that you have some belief that out-of-body experiences could be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Astral projection could be possible.
Indeed.
So,
Yep.
Isn't it possible that our spirit could technically leave us and somebody could see that without physically seeing us?
That's not a doppelganger, that's you, though.
Well, but, okay, so maybe a doppelganger, in my opinion, I guess, is maybe mislabeled.
That's more physical.
Yeah.
The mimic spirit is audio. Because I had a run-in with that, the mimic spirit, when Raven Rose was at the Sally House.
Right.
And what they did a Facebook Live thing there for about an hour and a half, I would say. 'Cause they all went out to eat. And when they went out to eat and stuff, I could have sworn I heard Cynthia's voice downstairs in the kitchen.
Wow.
Could have sworn. And as they went back, and there's several other of us, like Kim, Purvis, and I both caught it. So
that's really
and
interesting.
then with the hearing her voice and stuff. Now, when you see it, like I said, a doppelganger and a mimic spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could that potentially be the dark side of ourselves?
Ooh, I like that.
Speechless.
Or it could just be, an echo. I mean, we believe in echo hauntings.
It's true.
You know?
I mean, I definitely believe that, and I take a bigger leap of faith than John does. So obviously my answer is going to be a little different than his, but I do believe that it must be relatively easy for them to mimic us because they can manipulate things the way that they can. Now, obviously, I don't know how that happens, but I definitely believe that it can happen. And I wouldn't go so far as to say that there wouldn't be somebody or something that could use that for ill intent. And I'm not talking demonic. I'm just saying, somebody could just want to be an asshole and, oh, here's your little kid over here, but it's not really, I don't know. It's just an example, but I don't know. For me, yeah, I think that's possible.
Because I think there's a movie out there about something like this. I'm not sure what kind of movie it is, or the title of it, but I can swear there is a movie out there that's about that stuff, I think.
Trying to think.
That's Hollywood, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, people have believed in changelings forever. I mean, that's like one of the oldest, things out there. Call it what you want, legend, superstition, belief. Anything from if your baby could be replaced, and then it's a changeling and it's not your baby anymore, and stuff like that. So I think that honestly, I think that's one of our deepest. Somewhere that's one of our deep fears of, someone that we are familiar with or like not being that person at all. It's kind of a scary notion. So, when, back then, if your wife goes through like some weird period or has menopause and goes nutty or whatever, and then you say, oh, she's a changeling or she's a witch, and then the other way around, some guy goes nutty and starts axe murdering people. Back in the day, they'd be like, he's possessed or he's a changeling or it's not him, so I don't know.
Yeah, and when you were talking about the baby, that brings up Annabelle, the movie Annabelle.
Mm-hmm.
Where she had thought it was her child.
Yeah.
In her room, and she just got mad, she beat the crap out of the doll, and then all of a sudden she threw it, and then it was like, she thought it was her baby right away, that she did something wrong.
Yeah. The other thing that, talking about like physical doppelgangers too, there's so many reported stories of people who are reported to be of sound mind, who have had an experience that they believe to be a doppelganger, that there has to be something to that. Now, I don't know that I'm prepared to say that, they're seeing a full apparition. Like, there's the story of the teacher who is reported to have had a doppelganger in the school who would show up when the teacher was teaching class. I don't know that I'm ready to go full on that one, but there's so many accounts of something like that happening that there has to be something to that that's making people believe that that's happening.
Right.
Well, and even, you know, I think I've seen a video somewhere where maybe it was Grant thought he saw one of them, or somebody thought they saw, I think somebody thought they saw Grant, and he was actually upstairs, but they were like, no, you were just right here. And he's like, no, I swear to God, I was upstairs. So, I mean, even today, people are having that experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I'm kind of curious actually how heavy it is, what region of the U.S. that involves. I think it'd be more out east somewhere, because there's so much more stuff that happened out east than it has out west. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
I don't know.
I know, we're all just kind of sitting here thinking about it.
Deep thoughts.
I know, right? Yeah, that's good.
I actually got something tonight.
You did well. You did well. All right. Well, sir, we, as always, appreciate your time, and we'll give you a call next week to see what you can come up with.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Darren. We'll talk to you later.
See you later.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Depending on which side of the board you're on, Amityville is either taboo or it is cliche, I suppose. John is going to be more on that cliche side, I think.
No, I'm going to be more on the out and out for to make money side of things. But
I am here to play devil's advocate on this one, and in this instance, it is not. I don't know what I want to say. Anyway, I'm going to play devil's advocate, I guess, a little bit on this, just because I want to present some of the views and talk about them a little bit. I would say that probably, God, you know, I was about to say that probably 85% of the population thinks that Amityville was a hoax, but that's not really the case, because there's still so many people, even today, who believe it. You two are just sitting here staring at me.
well, you haven't said anything
I was just
to that I can debate, because that's true.
I mean, do you think it's 50-50?
no.
Not anymore. Used to be a lot.
Well, I mean, honestly, when the book probably first came out, it was probably more 70-30 people believe it.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, so for those who aren't familiar with the story, I think it starts even before the Lutzes. I think it's important to remember the grisly murders that kind of started this whole thing. So on November 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr., who his family called Butch, murdered his entire family, in their beds. And even this is kind of a disputed story. Butch is the only one well, first of all, he's the only one that lived, but he's the only one that's been kind of accused of murdering the family. After watching some of the documentaries Adam and I have watched, I do believe his sister helped him. I believe he then shot her, but I do think that he did not act alone. And that's hotly debated. There's a lot of people that think he did act alone. Butch DeFeo's current defense is that he was possessed. And that started kind of when the Lutzes moved in. So November 13th, 1974, Butch DeFeo ends up killing his mom and dad, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, three brothers. 2 sisters? I don't know, I get confused. Anyway, the interesting thing about the murders is that he shot them with a shotgun, and nobody in the neighborhood heard anything. I think that, and that's always kind of stuck with me and been really interesting until I became a 911 dispatcher and had a gentleman shoot himself in a apartment building with a shotgun and did not receive a single phone call from anybody reporting a shotgun shot. So obviously the people in the apartment building heard it. Nobody reported it. And I think that that could be the case here, where people maybe heard it and then just, people don't want to get involved with stuff. But also, sometimes you'll wake up, or I have anyway, and think that I heard the doorbell, but then I don't hear it again. But the doorbell probably did really ring, but it was just enough to wake me up, but I'm not conscious enough to have heard it. So I think that that could be the case also with the shotgun shots that killed the DeFeo family. Anyway, so Butch is arrested within like 24 hours, and he is sent to prison where he remains to this day. And he was convicted on November 20th, 1975, sentenced on December 4th, 1975, and just a few days later, the Lutz family moves into 112 Ocean Avenue, which today I believe the address is 110 Ocean Avenue, and they've tried to change the house so it's not as recognizable because it had those two signature kind of eye-looking windows. They don't exist any longer. But
they've got those at the Valiska house, very small ones.
Do they?
Cool. Yeah.
That's interesting.
When you go into the attic up top.
Really?
Yeah.
So December 18th, 1975 is when the Lutzes moved in. And it was George Lutz. Good Lord, I just forgot his wife's name.
Mrs. George.
Kathy. George and Kathy Lutz and Kathy's 3 children. They ended up, the house was called High Hopes. The DeFeos had called it that. And most of the
Some
pictures...
people just don't appreciate irony, do they?
Right, exactly. Most of the pictures that you see of the house, you can see the High Hope sign outside. The Lutzes ended up getting the house for like $80,000, which at the time was a steal, but still out of their price range, which is kind of important to remember. I believe this is the first house that George and Kathy owned together. They were relatively newly married. And it didn't take long. In fact, I believe it was the 20th, maybe, when they moved in and had the priest come in.
26 days,
Yeah.
from start to finish.
Yep. Almost right away, they had a priest come in, bless the house, and similar to another story we've recently talked about, he was attacked by flies in the windowsill in the middle of winter.
I see a formula coming on.
Exactly. And says that he heard a voice telling him to get out and was soon afflicted with blisters on his hands, and he became very ill. And in fact, almost died, I think, in a car accident, according to some stories, after leaving the house. Kathy, who seems to have been relatively religious and obviously Catholic, made several attempts to get back in touch with the priest, and every time she tried to talk to him about the house, their connection would go bad on the phone. So he never ended up coming back to the house, and there was always kind of a strange situation reportedly between Kathy and the priest when she was trying to talk to him about the house, or he was trying to warn them about the house. Then George starts to wake up every morning at 3:15. They had a dog. The dog, who was normally, I guess, normal, energetic, whatever, became basically just slept the whole time, like our dogs. So I don't know if that's
to me that seems normal.
Right. But where the dog had been, kind of on guard when people would come to the house or whatever, all of a sudden the dog's just sleeping all the time. George starts to go through kind of a personality change, starts to quit taking care of himself, quits going to work. He owned a surveying business, and basically through the time that they owned the house, he quit going.
Sounds more like depression.
I would agree with that. And it was winter, so that kind of makes sense too. Missy, who was Kathy's 5-year-old daughter, develops 2 imaginary friends. One of them is Jody, who she says can change size and appearance, and then a little boy that she talks to as well. And George at one point says that he sees Jody in a window, and it's this large pig with red eyes. And
the footprints of hoofs in the snow.
Hoofprints in the snow. I mean, they have all kinds of claims. You know, they were seeing a demonic face in the back of the fireplace. The toilets turned black. Stuff started oozing out of the walls. One night, Kathy changed appearances into a very old woman, and welts started appearing everywhere, and she was burning up. And then within hours was back to looking completely normal. Now, on the night that Butch DeFeo murdered his family, when he was done, he ran to a local bar and screams, "Somebody's killed my family." And everybody in the bar ended up going back to the house with them. One of his friends went in, discovered the family. Well, towards the end of the Lutz's time at 112 Ocean Avenue, George goes into a bar, which in the book is called the Witch's Brew, which is not a real bar in Amityville. And the bartender apparently makes comments to how close he looks to Butch.
No wonder he's shouting me.
Right.
Don't call me bitch.
How close he looks to how close he looks to Butch DeFeo, and basically insinuates that whatever was possessing Butch in the house is now possessing George in the house. You know, in the middle of the night, George is waking up hearing a marching band go through the house. A stone lion statue moved. So they've got all these really crazy claims, basically. I mean, and if you haven't read the book, even if you don't believe it, read the book, because it's a really good book.
It is a good story.
Yeah. And it's really kind of, it's creepy. It's scary. So, the Lutzes flee the home in the middle, well, not in the middle of the night. They get up in the middle of the night, are terrified throughout the remainder of the night, and as soon as they see daylight, they flee the home, leaving all of their personal belongings behind.
Do they go into a motel and then wheel the television out?
Yes. Never to return again. Sounds like Poltergeist.
Yeah.
Never to return again, basically. So, it almost right away, they start talking about having a paranormal group come in and investigate the house. And I cannot for the life of me remember the guy's name that they initially talked to, but he's a little bit more, I don't want to say down to earth because he's a character himself. But he's not quite as easy to buy into things as the Warrens were. And he makes arrangements with the Lutzes. He's going to go in and investigate the home. And this guy mentions something, I think, to somebody who works for a newspaper that he's going to go to the house. And immediately George calls and says, "Hey, you're not going to do it anymore because we didn't want any publicity about what was going on in the house." However, later that day, George and Kathy Lutz hold their own press conference and announced that there is a team of investigators that are headed by Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are going to go...
i.e. they want to control the story.
Right, who are going to go investigate the house. And I believe the Warrens went there twice with their crew, and there was another older woman that was also psychic, and she and Lorraine, as well as Ed, claimed to have a lot of very scary experiences with what they deemed demons in the home. Our picture of the week will be actually the picture that came out of that, which I still to this day think is a really interesting picture. Looks like a little boy standing in the doorway of one of the rooms. Now, there are all kinds of documentaries, and I wish I would have written down the one that I really like, but you can find all kinds of documentaries about it on YouTube. But there's a documentary that was made kind of by the woman who was an intern at the time that this crew went to investigate the Lutz's house. And she swears to God that picture is legit. Now, she also says that absolutely nothing happens in the time that they were investigating the house. Ed and Lorraine were very dramatic about what happened while they were there. She claims that the only thing that happened was Lorraine would say, oh, something's cold, or oh, something's here, but they didn't feel anything in the house, didn't experience anything in the house, kind of, so I tend to kind of believe her a little bit more. But the picture looks like a little boy standing in a doorway, and he's either got glasses on that are reflecting light, or his eyes are glowing, depending on how you look at it. However, at the time the picture was taken, there were no children in the house. And the boy bears a striking resemblance to the youngest DeFeo boy.
My stomach's rumbling.
The demons.
The DeFeo. I'm going to have another drink of Coke, I think.
So, February, I was just kind of looking through my notes here. February 1976 is actually when the Warrens went into the house to investigate.
Stomach, don't follow through.
So, all of this is happening, and it starts to come to light that the Lutzes, at one point, have made contact with Ronnie DeFeo's attorney. Now, they say that the reason they reached out to him was because they started to worry that Ronnie maybe had been possessed, and they wanted a little bit more information about what he had gone through and what his story was. And since they couldn't reach out to Ronnie directly, they reached out to his attorney. Well, the attorney now, later down the line, I guess, admits that, yes, he met with the Lutzes, but basically it was because they realized that this house was more than they can afford, and George was losing his business, which is why he wasn't going. I don't know if that's true or not. But over several bottles of wine, they devised the story that would become the Amityville Horror. They reached out to Jay Anson to write the book and devised this, really dramatic story about all these terrible things that were happening to this family upon moving into the house. And the hope was that it would help both parties, that it might help Ronnie get off or get a shorter sentence, and that it might help the Lutzes get out from underneath this house. The book, The Amityville Horror, is written. It's immediately a bestseller. The movie, obviously, is huge. And despite the fact that one of the people who helped create the story has come out and said this was all made up, there are still so many people who believe that this story is true.
There are a couple other points. So, for me, first off, the priest has said, yes, he went to the house, nothing happened. He didn't get blisters, he didn't nearly die.
He is actually, he's had several different stories.
Okay.
In court, he admitted that he did go to the house, that he did hear a voice, and that he did become afflicted with what he considered a natural sickness. But yes, he did, you're right. He did say this was so blown out.
I can't remember the name of the investigator, but he went and checked. So the reason I brought up the hoof prints in the snow, that 26 days they were there, it didn't snow.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Reports of police going to the house. Police never went to that house while they were there. And there are so many inconsistencies, and I, it's just wrong.
Yeah. So, if you go to Wikipedia, that's probably my favorite place because, as John was mentioning, there were so many areas that just didn't make any sense. And Wikipedia actually, I'm pretty sure that is where I saw. But
Spokes is good too.
Yeah. Oh, Spokes is always good. But, it lists out basically the things that were said, and as John mentioned, reasons why they're not real. One of them is that I don't know who came up with the story of John Ketchum, or Ketham, I think was his name, was reportedly supposed to be this witch from Salem, Massachusetts that escaped, settled in Amityville, and is buried at the corner of the property. Well, he was never a real thing, and he's not buried there. There was also...
The Indians never lived there?
Yeah, that's what I was going to next.
Yeah.
So the other one was that the Massapequa tribe had basically claimed where 112 Ocean Avenue was a part of their land where they kind of where they kept their sick, old, and crazy. And
quarantined.
Yes, thank you. It wasn't coming out of my mouth. That they kept them there to keep them away from everybody else in the tribe, and that they're buried there, and it's bad ground. When in reality, like most Native American tribes, they're very family-oriented, and they would have surrounded these people to keep them safe.
Plus, they actually settled about 70 miles away
Correct.
from them.
Yes. So the Shinnecock was another tribe that they talked about. So Long Island, if you kind of break it up into threes, the Shinnecock and the whatever I said first, both of them settled on the
quarantine.
No, both of those tribes settled on the further northeast ends of the island, and Amityville is on the southwest part of the island. So yeah, basically everything that they talked about, for the most part, has been refuted by actual facts.
The other thing that's also mentionable is there have been families lived in that house since, and nobody's shot anybody or reported anything. So
yeah, so
that's a good indication.
The red room that the Lutzes say that they discovered, there is a video, and I want to say that it was from, what was that? God, what is this show called? Anyway, they interviewed the family, that the neighbors, and one of the neighbor girls talks about how that red room has actually been the toy room, and that her and the DeFeo children played in that room, and it was never covered up, it was never hidden, and it certainly wasn't painted red because there were some type of satanic rituals happening in there. It was just a room that...
Your child's first Ouija board.
Right.
Look at the toys.
So, the Hans Holzer actually steps into this.
You want to play sacrifice? It's my turn to be the virgin. You're always the virgin.
Oh my God. Hans Holzer actually steps in, and he was one who really clung tightly to the Native American aspects of this story. And in fact, he believes that he has a picture. Ethel Myers was the psychic that he worked with in Amityville, and they actually went there a couple times themselves. He believes that they took a picture of an Indian on a horse in the living room, and believes that it's that spirit that affected Ronnie DeFeo and the Lutzes, and claims that the reason that all of, for example, George and Kathy Lutz say that the front door blew open off of its hinges when in fact the original door was still on the house in the 80s, and all of the hardware was still original and undamaged. Well, Hans Holzer said that was because what the Lutzes were experiencing, as I've mentioned before, were psychical experiences. So basically, they were hallucinating almost, having these experiences. Correct.
Hence high hopes.
Yeah, right. So,
There's got to be a book.
Hans Holzer really believed that they were having these psychical experiences, so they were experiencing everything that they said, but it was almost an alternate form of reality for them.
Called imagination.
Right.
To make a book.
I was going to say, because that's just a real technical way to basically say that was... It's a technical way to say it was real, but it wasn't really real. I mean, it's just like...
Yeah.
I don't know, that seems... The problem is, you get people like that. I can imagine it. If you're a psychic or, a ghost hunter kind of person, and you get the Amityville, you get in on ground level, and you help with the hype, and you do like, ooh, it's huge, and then a few years down the road, everyone says, nah, it's all made up, mate, sorry. Now, you're so invested in that, you've got to make it fit. You can't say, yeah, okay,
right.
I was making it up too, or, ooh, I got hornswoggled. You can't, you are so invested in that now, you'll think up anything to back yourself up because you've got to, especially in a field like that.
Mm-hmm. So, the Warrens are probably the people the two faces of this story that I think most people recognize. And actually, I'm thinking back, everybody's dead now. The Lutzes are both passed. Ed and Lorraine Warren are both deceased. Hans Holzer is deceased. The only people who are living any longer are the kids. And actually, there is a really good documentary called My Amityville Horror, which is a documentary made by one of the Lutz children. And I can't remember the kid's name. Anyway.
He's the older son.
He is. And he talks
about...
a
tradition of making up names when we don't know. Let's call him Sean.
Okay, Sean. Sean it is. He talks about how George was into the occult and witchcraft and drugs and was really kind of a horrible person. And claims that George brought whatever happened to the family in the things that he was dabbling in. Now, he says that while some of it was exaggerated and completely made up, there were experiences that happened in the house, although he declined to really go into too much depth. Although, if memory serves correctly, I think he did say that they did levitate out of their beds.
Well, and the other one he talked about was his hand being smashed.
Smashed by the window.
Smashed by the window. They were just about ready to run him to the hospital, and then somebody said everything was fine, but he still got a problem with his finger or something.
And in the book, his hand is smashed as flat as a piece of paper, and they take him to the hospital, and the doctors don't know what happened, and then his hand heals fine. And they never went to the hospital. It's a really good documentary, actually. If you can find it, it's hard to find, but if you can, watch it. It's pretty good. I like so many, and like the two of you, I believe that this is a story that got so carried away. But it's interesting to me, the little pieces that aren't so easily explained away. Hans Holzer, kind of, I think he's still considered kind of, God, I don't want to call him an expert because who really is an expert? But, he's somebody that...
Experienced.
Okay, we'll go with that. He's somebody that people listen to who's done a lot of studying on all things paranormal, and he didn't seem to lose face over his involvement, although his involvement with Amityville was pretty minimal. The Warrens, when I first got involved in this field, I thought the Warrens were everything. I believed them so much. And then I actually started reading and studying things, and I can firmly say that I don't know that they were always intentionally deceptive as much as they were gullible in making their own narratives. But they definitely aren't what people hold them up to be.
I guess I haven't dug, but the question I had was, what did they do for jobs?
Well, initially, Lorraine was an artist, and Ed may have been a minister. I'm not certain on that. But eventually, they became, whatever they are today. Demonologists, I guess.
And they've got a nice house with a nice museum in it.
Well, now they have two graves.
Well, you know what I mean. But
they're nice graves.
Yeah. And, traveling all over the place, it's like, I always well, where'd they get the money to do that? Because I can't do that. I mean, someone calls me up from Amityville, I'll be like, no, you have to get someone closer, mate, sorry. So. Now,
supposedly, the Warrens did not take any money for what they did. Now, they did. They wrote books.
They wrote books about it.
They did.
Yeah.
And obviously, Lorraine has been when she was alive, was involved in all of the movies that are based on their stories. Annabelle, as we talked about earlier, the Conjuring series, those types of things. I mean, so they were definitely getting money that way. I have heard that they were just the sweetest of people, and I have no doubt that that's true. I do, honestly, I think that they were just very misguided. So, people always, whenever somebody thinks somebody's lying, they always throw, well, take a lie detector test. Take a lie detector test. The Lutzes took lie detector tests and passed them.
They're easy to pass. That's why a lot of places they're not even taken as evidence.
Well, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. So, you know, people are always like, take a lie detector test, and the Lutzes did, and they passed theirs. And so that's largely never discussed, but I think it's an interesting fact. Also, you know, the picture of the little boy, I think that's an interesting thing to come out of this investigation that nobody really seems to have an explanation for, other than some people just don't think it's real, but nobody's got an alternative explanation to where or how this picture came about.
I think I saw, and I'm not going to throw it out there as any kind of argument because the memory's fuzzy, but I remember seeing somewhere that it's not actually taken where you think it's taken. Somebody had the exact same photo somewhere else. And I can't remember now for definite. I just remember reading that, and also I never followed up to see what's true. But I mean,
so supposedly the boy's standing in what was Butch's bedroom doorway, and he has said yes, that was his bedroom, and I think if the room just next to it is a bathroom, maybe is what he said.
Yeah, I don't, like I said, I dug enough into the Amityville horror way back when because I thought it was great, and what if that was real kind of thing. But you know, it's one of those things. The more you dig into it, the more you find out it's wrong.
Yeah.
And then you hit enough of them, you're like, and you throw the whole thing out because, you know, how much time do you want to take up on it? You know, and move on to the next one.
Well, here's another interesting fact. So while the book, The Amityville Horror, grossed a shit ton of money, Jay Anson actually died just before he could enjoy literally any of his money, which is unfortunate. And the Lutzes only got $250,000 out of the whole deal. Movie, book, everything. So they really did not end up with that much money. And they spent the rest of their lives defending their story. And till the day that they both passed, they have said that everything they said is true.
Bet they got paid for the interviews, though.
Oh, I'm sure. But
God, I'm so cynical. It's horrible.
you are, but that's
well, it's because we're talking about Amityville, though.
Right.
I guess.
And I think you kind of have to be. It's still one of my favorite stories and one of my favorite cases. I just wish that not everybody was so, like, all in on it, I guess.
Well,
but what if Hans Holzer had a point? And what if some of these experiences are psychical experiences that are very much like a hallucination? And what if they were really experiencing these things even though outwardly they weren't?
I got double-sided sword argument for that is in those big ones, I'm not buying it because he's just trying to cover up the fact that he agreed with it and then it turned out to be fake, so he's trying to find anything in that square hole. He's holding a round peg, he's got a square hole, how do I make this fit? It doesn't matter, you know, fuzzy logic, that's fine, we'll throw that at it. But, on the other hand, I do believe it's possible, which is why I went out and bought that brain reader thing. So, I think, you know, if there are spirits and they can influence, brainwaves are electric. So, you know, it's, of course, if, you know, they are what we think they are, of course they can influence your mind. And who knows what they can do with it. So, I think it's possible. I just don't think in this instance that's what it is. Because I think the guy's just too invested. All he's got to... And a lot of this stuff is blind faith. Like you said, I wish people would not be so into it. It's just a blind faith thing. And if he's got I mean, how many psychics have been found out that they've still got their followers because they just throw anything out there, and people are so invested in things, they will not let it go. So,
Well,
that's what I think.
honestly, the true victors of this whole thing is the Warrens.
Victims?
No, the
The
victors.
victims. Oh, yeah.
Yes. I think it's the Warrens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably, over the time period of the whole thing, I mean, they probably benefited more than anyone.
Well, this brought them
Big
to the
time.
forefront.
Yeah, because, it was after this they did all the other stuff that they since made movies off of and everything else that...
Yeah, they became the core investigators for any movie that you want to
Absolutely.
make. Let's go look at the Warrens case files.
Exactly.
I mean, and I'm not going to lie, if you turn around and look up there, there's a few books up there written by the Warrens, and I've read them, and they're basically just them telling their stories, which is fine. I wanted them to be legit, and unfortunately, they're just not like we want them to be anyway. They're not the heroes that they've been made out to be. I guess my final question relating to this is, why do you think people hang on to this story? Even though one of the creators of it has come out and said, and people will have refuted what that his denial was because he didn't come out financially any better, and his client did not get off.
He was doing it through spite.
Yeah.
That's kind of weak. But I think, basically for me, the reason I didn't want to let it go, the story is a great, and it's a very scary story, but because you think it's real, that's what gives it that biting edge to it. You take away, it's not really real, it's just made up. So now all of a sudden it loses a part of it, I think. It's the same as, I don't know. I mean, there's tons of stories out there, that are real, and that's what gives them their substance.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the Amityville horror, as long as it's real, it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
You take it away, and then you actually look at it for what it is, and it is really, it's just a bunch of, wouldn't that be scary? One scene things.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you could think of that could be, what would if blood started coming out your walls? Would that scare you?
Mm-hmm.
Sitting around a campfire. What if there was a pig floating behind you with red eyes? Would that scare you? That's okay, that's fun. But then you package them all together and say, no, it's actually real, this does that. And then that's what gives it teeth. For me, that's why I didn't want to let it go. I was like, no, these things happen.
Yeah, it's the whole fantastical aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's real.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, exactly.
So, I mentioned that the picture of the boy, sorry, I'm like moving around, I'm sure it's making tons of noise. The picture of the boy would be our picture of the week. And so, John, you've already kind of mentioned that
I would do research on it.
you think it's potentially from somewhere else.
I know either that. I knew there was something about it that was kind of flagged. So I'll go and research that.
Adam?
The picture?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the biggest problems with being part of the paranormal field, is that when anyone else takes a photo,
Yep.
you look at it and say it's fake. Now, it is a very interesting photo, if it's true. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, so I'm just taking somebody's word that it's real.
But having watched the same documentary I have, with a woman that we both agreed was very credible.
Yes. I mean, it's interesting. Could it be someone else that was there, not a kid, peeking out, and it's just how it appeared?
No.
Yeah, it could be. It could be any number of things. I'm just saying, there's always explanations for it. I don't know yet.
I don't have an explanation.
I'm not saying it's fake because it's someone else's picture, although you're right. A lot of times you'll get one like that. The reason that's leaning me towards it's not real, which is really sad if it is real, but is that the whole bloody thing's not real. So that's going to put weight on my decision of 50-50. It's not going to be 50-50 anymore. It's going to be, everything else is. Like I said earlier, I'm not going to waste my time on it. That's probably just part of the whole bloody makeup of it. So, but which is sad.
Yeah.
But that's why I hate people that fraud stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Well, I will find the names of the documentaries that we watched because I highly recommend them. And it's just kind of a unique perspective into the story. So I'll find those. I'll see if I can find where you might be able to watch My Amityville Horror. You may have to pay a couple dollars to watch it, but I think it's worth it just to hear. Chris, I think is his name. Just to hear his. I mean, he hated George Lutz. He hated him. But
he had a rough life.
He did. He had a terrible life,
because
actually.
The fact that he was older when George and Kathy got together, like he knew his dad and remembered his dad, and then was basically taken away from his dad.
And then he was thrown into this.
Yeah. So yeah, his life was rough, and I think he still. Well, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I mean he had some substance abuse issues and stuff too. So to add to it,
yeah. And I don't want to lose sight of the family that lost their lives and kind of started this whole thing unintentionally.
Well, they didn't start it.
Well, no, they didn't personally, but that's where it kind of got its start.
The guy that shot them started.
Yeah,
They were just
absolutely,
asleep.
Ronnie DeFeo. So
what am I going to do tonight? I think I'll start a horror story by getting shot.
Today, Ronnie DeFeo is working with a psychic. I can't think of her name right now, and I just shut all my notes down. I'll also post
Why?
Because she believes that she and Ronnie met psychically very early in their lives and that they are psychically connected, and she firmly believes that he was possessed and that it was not his hand that killed his family, and she's currently working to try to get him out. In fact,
anybody want to give me odds on if that's going to work?
Hey, it's not, but
I mean, I have a feeling that his appeal process is probably long over.
In fact, you know what I'd do? If I was a judge, I'd be like, well, wait a minute. If you're psychically linked, you're guilty by association. If you were in his head while he was killing people, I'm sorry. You didn't say anything about it to the police. There you go.
Well, I'll find her story and I'll post that too, because I like to give people the full gamut of perspective as much as possible. So, like I said, if you haven't read the Amityville Horror, do even going into it knowing that it's made up, do, because it's a really good book. I still like the movie. I like the original one. The one with Ryan Reynolds is fine, but I'm always kind of a fan of the originals.
I couldn't watch the remake. I got about 15 minutes in. I'm like, ugh.
It's not the original. I love the original. I didn't see a need to remake it, but I don't see a need to remake Disney movies either. And now we're doing live versions of all those, so off my pedestal now. Anyway,
Disney dollars. They screwed up Star Wars. I'll never forgive them for that.
Well, I've never seen any of them. So.
Yeah, well.
Anyway, so we went a little bit longer than I intended to. I apologize.
We can edit a lot of it out.
We'll just leave this part in. We may be cutting back on the amount of episodes we do. Basically, I got a different job, and now I work 12-hour shifts, and I've just started, so they're killing me right now. So we may cut back a little bit. I don't know. We have to discuss it, see what we want to do with it. Plus, life gets in the way sometimes. I love this podcast, even if nobody else listens. I kind of, as I mentioned before, I do this for me because I like to just discuss this stuff. And so let other people in on our discussion is kind of fun too. So
it's therapy.
It is therapy, kind of. I'm trying to think
I'm
if
gonna
they're
start charging $50 an hour to both of you.
But no, it's not therapy for me.
Yeah, because the most time I just sit back and listen. So
well, that's your choice.
No, I'm charging now.
You're the cause of my need for therapy
then,
most of the time.
Wow.
We are really cutting back on episodes. I think it's $50 ago.
Daddy needs a new pair of shoes.
Anyway, so if you start to see a decline, please stick with us. We're just adjusting some things because, real life. But that's about all I got for right now. You guys got anything exciting you want to share before we go?
Oh. Well, you go first because I'm going to have to pay $50 for this. So
Yeah.
yours out there.
You are. Yeah. I don't really have a lot of excitement. I mean, we would appreciate some feedback, some comments, maybe some questions. Even if you hate us.
Suggestions on what you want us to talk about?
Yeah, even if you hate us.
We'll even take the haters. Come on.
We take
We'll
anything at this
probably
point.
discuss what you say on the radio. Or we're not on the radio. You know what I mean.
Radio Gaga.
Mm.
Me, basically, I'm putting all my energy now into phantom science. So, and as cynical as I come across, I mean, a lot of things I am, but I'm also open-minded to experiment on pretty much anything too. So, that's kind of fun. And I'm just trying to get away from the stories and all the. You get psychic after psychic after psychic after psychic going into a place. And they're not all, I'm not saying every psychic's wrong or not a psychic, but really, are there that many out there? And it just keeps building and building and building and more details, and you're like, none of this has been proved, half of it's not even real. So.
Have you worked any further with Kelly?
No, I'd like to.
Okay. I didn't know if that had gone any further.
No.
We are going to work with Kelly a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. Like I say, I am open-minded. It's just, when people give me a statement of fact, where did you get that from? I have a problem with that. So, which, an investigator should, really. Don't you think? Or am I just being...
Question everything.
Who
Absolutely.
are you? Prove it. Where's your papers?
My wallet's upstairs.
Where are yours, mister?
Haven't got any.
Great. ICE is coming to my house now.
All right. Well, if you are looking for John, remember, no longer with WTF, we are Phantom Science now.
Yep, phantomscience.net.
All right. And you can find me on the Facebook at C Paranormal Sarah. It's SEE Paranormal Sarah with an H. And you can still find all three of us on the Facebook and the Twitter at Seeking the Paranormal. And I guess that'll do it until our next episode, where we'll have another fun topic that I haven't figured out yet.
Nice.
I can think of one.
Tell me.
No, not right now.
Oh, okay. All right, our next topic will be
synchronicity. There's one we should do.
All right.
Oh,
well, and you know what? Now that we're into December, we neglected to talk about the fact that, what was that mockumentary called? And the second part of it's come out.
Hellier.
Yes, Hellier
yes.
2 is out now, so
yep.
Talk about synchronicity. So yeah, we'll talk about synchronicities next.
Just saying.
I'm going to have to research that.
So you're going to watch Hellier 2?
It's a synchronicity.
I am.
Isn't it a police album or a police song? It was.
No, maybe. It's probably before my time.
Yaha!
All right.
Hey, young man.
On that note, enjoy the rest of your nights or day, whatever, and keep seeking the paranormal.
Keep riding that Peloton.